And for the last, how many days now? For the last 1 week, we'll be talking of public finance, Abi. We'll be talking of public finance. Now, technically, I think it's not clear. It's blood, Abi? Yeah. Technically, we've covered a lot, miss. So, we have covered some first part of it, and we are in public finance. We have covered public finance, technically, the introduction of it. Now, we are going to the issue of public debt and management, then we'll go to allocation. Now, what are we going to be discussing today? I will introduce you. Just yesterday, I've done part of the introduction. I will also further introduce the issue concerning how debts are generated in public sector and the issue concerning the causes of debt, how do we finance public debt, how debt is classified, the effect of debt, how debt are redeemed and managed, then the issue concerning public surplus and public surplus management. Now, ladies and gentlemen, like I said in one of the classes, the syllabus, there is nothing like surplus in the syllabus. I'm intentionally teaching it in case you are in a forum and you want to even argue on two sides of the coin, Tabi, both debt, deficit and surplus. Probably because we have never had surplus in Nigeria, there's no need knowing what to, but we are taking steps to manage some of the surplus that we have. One of those surplus that we normally have in Nigeria is called excess crude accounts. How many of you have ever excess crude account before? You must have heard of it now. Excess crude account is simple. Let me give you guys the basis of excess crude account. Nigeria, we rely on a sole product, Abi, which is oil, Abi, and which is not within our, the pricing is not within our control. Some days the price can be $40, another day the price is $100, Abi. It's based on some forces beyond us. And we cannot just say that because the price is $40, we want to increase our own selling price to $70. It's not possible. OPEC controls it. Having studied other models, Venezuela and other countries of the world, that we should decide the price we're going to base our budget on. Based on a 10-year review of the pricing of oil at every particular year. So, let's assume oil was sold for 140 year one, year two, let's say it is 130, year three, it is 30, like that, to year 10, it was sold for 40. They will take this entire pricing and take the average with other indices, technical indices they use to look at it, crisis in the Middle East, because whenever there are crises in the Middle East also affect prices a bit, and the way the country is going at that time, and come up with a benchmark price. Are you getting it? Now, say the benchmark price is $50. Based on that, the budget is prepared. If we now sell above this $50, it is bonus. Anything above that, let's assume we now sell at $100, meaning that we will use $50 to do our budget and run all our expenditure. Anything above that, which is under $50, will be taken to the excess crude account. Why? Because there have been some years when we are going to budget at $50 and oil will sell at $25, $30. What is this? This is microeconomic stabilize. Are you getting it? So that was what the excess crude account was. So this was the only form of savings we have done, like other countries, though we did not pull it through because a lot of political will was needed. We're going to talk about that later, but have an understanding of this, that was why we derived the excess crude account. So how do we get to have debt? First, debt is a function of deficit in the budget or in public finance. We said that public finance is essentially, have you looked at the debt profile of Nigeria? Somebody asked me a question yesterday, do we need to know all these things? What do we need to be able to know? I'm not saying to cram some of these things. But sometimes when you are in the exam hall and you are trying to impress the examiner, some of these points can come handy. Do you understand? That used to explain your point. If you by chance know the level of budget deficit of Nigeria, which is about 2 trillion naira, I don't know the full figure, but anybody you tell that is about 2 trillion, the person have an understanding that you have the practical knowledge of what you are learning. So we said public revenue should equal public expenditure in an ideal situation, Abi. Everything being equal, like the economists will call it, what do they call that thing? Everything being equal, the amount of money we need to spend should equal the amount of money we need to make. And that is also the way it is in our private life, Abi. Everything being equal, your earning should equal your expenses. But is that always the case? Never. Has anybody had that experience that your earning is equal to your expenses? There's no way that. So sometimes the revenue can be greater, Abi, than the amount of money you are spending. If the revenue is greater than the amount of money you are spending, you have what we call the surplus, Abi, and you are good. Meaning that you can save. And that's the argument why people say they don't have savings, Abi, because even the income is not enough. So how can I save? And if it's the other way, your revenue can be lower than your expenditure. In that case, you get to the deficit, Abi. Now, deficit is not debt, because the fact that your expenditure doesn't match your revenue doesn't mean you have to borrow all the money that you need. You have two options: increase the amount of money you make, Abi, or reduce the amount of money you want to spend. Now, how do we increase the amount of money we make in public sector? We increase taxes, Abi. We increase fines. We increase all the other things that will bring money directly to government. And if that one fails, we can also reduce expenditure, Abi. We reduce public service. We reduce the amount of money that I'm coming to that one. We reduce the amount of money politicians earn, Abi. We tell them to reduce the size of their houses, all in the bid to achieve the objective of reducing the public expenditure. But when those two fails and still you have a situation where your revenue can't still meet the expenditure that you want, you must borrow. So that's essentially what is being depicted in this graph, and that is what we're about to talk about. Now, some of these things I intentionally left there because some of the figures now is mind-blowing. I can't even talk about them because even me, my heart is bleeding. I went to get this one from 25. We're facing a 1.9 trillion budget gap, meaning that the difference between our revenue and expenditure as at 2015 January was 1.9 trillion. And later on, we found out that no, we even expect 2.3 trillion, 2.2 trillion to be able to meet our economy. You can see the way this thing now. Did you see the figures now? It's humongous, Abi. Now, ladies and gentlemen, so public debt essentially refers to borrowing. It refers to borrowing by government either within the country or from outside the country. I'll give you this illustration and I'll refer to it later, because some scholars say that any money not within government, if government goes to borrow from a bank, it is external debt. But most scholars have said no, as far as that bank is within the same country, do you understand? Then it can still be considered as internal debt. Any money outside that geographic location, say federal government of Nigeria borrows money from Benin Republic, that is external debt, no matter how small it is. Are you making sense? And that's something about debt. Now, debt is not bad. Debt is not bad, and I want you to understand that concept. And this shows you the way in relationship to total GDP, and that's what I said to you guys, GDP in public sector is something that you must have a good grasp of, because it's the basis of explanation of performance of government, and it's the basis of explanation of most indices of government. For example, this chart is showing the total debt to GDP of majority of these countries. And you can, if you look at it very well, Nigeria is in 11 to 30%, meaning that our debt profile is low. It's low. And that's part of the argument we were saying that we should keep borrowing more money. But the flip side of the argument is this. What is our tax to GDP, which is our main income, Abi? What is our tax to GDP? Also very low. Majority of Nigerians don't pay tax. Do you understand? So tax is supposed to be the basis of, let me say, the guarantee that when you borrow money, you're going to pay back. That's the basis of why you're going to. That's the money that no matter what, when all the citizens contribute money, they have capacity to pay. But when that is not there, meaning that argument also does not actually too much make sense, because that means we need to increase the tax base before we can argue concerning GDP. Also, GDP is a performance of the economy, Abi. Probably our economy has not performed to the level where we can go to the allocation. Find out what your state collects in a month in terms of allocation. Now assume your state use all the money they collect to pay the debts. Now divide it, you get the number of years. Take your state, assuming they are not paying salary, they are not doing anything to pay. Now the law is also that you actually take 30% of it, assuming the state is operating normal. Now we also know that most of these states are operating in such a way that the salary is entirely the allocation, abi? They don't have anything left after the allocation. So you can see India, they have 78%. Zimbabwe is that what? Is normal? No, there's another word for abnormal. Something higher than abnormal. What is it said? Okay, so debt is not really bad. Do you understand? As far as debt is being used for purposes that are good. Now, again, I also need to explain when we're talking of debt. The impression sometimes is just that debt is just the money government borrowed for budgetary purposes. Because, like I explained here, this is essentially revenue and expenditure. But the debt government owes goes beyond that. I was trying to get the one from Nigeria, I couldn't get, and so I used the one for US. You can see that the debt included the money from the money the US government is owing to foreign agency, foreign government, domestic, mutual fund, state, local government, private pension, bank, insurance, savings bond, others. Now, for example, yesterday we were talking concerning pension funds, abi? Pension fund that is being guaranteed, so to say, by federal government, abi? It's being guaranteed by federal government. That means anytime you want that money paid, government should find a way of meeting its obligation. Therefore, the government debt profile includes all that money that you have contributed. How many of you contributed to National Housing Fund here and you have not heard anything of it? Those are the kind of, so if we all say we want all our money on National Housing Fund back, do you understand? It's part of the debt of government that we call them all balance sheet, abi, that we're not yet talking about. Now, for example, also banks. Government owes a lot of banks, abi. Government owes banks now, in this case, from Zenith Bank, and most of the states like that. To meet short-time obligations here and there, they borrow. Now, so to understand the debt profile of government at every point in time includes the debt of federal government and all the state governments and all the local governments, both internal and external. That is when you can know the true debt profile of a country. And you know, you guys have seen the debt of Nigeria, abi? When you put the state and the federal government together, I sent it to you guys, abi? You guys will see it, so that you can see why we need to really, really get this country going, or else. So, what causes debt? Number one thing that causes debt, which we have agreed, is deficit. I mean, it's deficit. And what causes deficit? For example, population can increase, but not only population increase. When we have too many free riders in the population, what is free riders? Who are free riders? People that don't pay taxes. One of the objectives of government is to reduce to barest minimum these free riders. However, sometimes it's impossible. Especially in Nigeria, where we don't have a database, abi, of people that are existing and all that, and it's hard to know the person that is paying tax in every locality and who is not paying tax. If we say, for example, people should start carrying around with their tax clearance, some people will say, no, I won't pay because they've not even done anything with the money I paid, as if they've ever paid before. Now, there may also be, because of increase in population, increase in expenditure. Yesterday I explained that, for example, if the population increases from 1 to 2 million, meaning that, for example, if it's a growing population, you may need some growing things, abi. That means the number of schools may need to increase, abi. For the number of schools to increase, you need some teachers, abi. You need to build the schools. You need to buy the tables and chairs. And all those things are public expenditure that also can increase the amount of expenditure we are paying, whereas the revenue may not have really increased. I mean, it's like in your house, if you give birth to children, abi, and your salary has not changed. In Nigeria today, I think they don't need to preach family planning to anybody, abi. School fees is a loan. When you look at school fees, you plan your family. Except you are totally irresponsible. Except you are totally. Also, with controls of taxes. If we have a case in Nigeria, abi, if taxes is not properly being collected, it can also cause a case where revenue is not being complete, abi, it's not high because a lot of people are stealing the money. Also leading to deficit. And when there is deficit, it leads to debt. War. At the point of war, usually revenue collection collapses, abi? But we need to expend money to protect ourselves or our country. That means we need to borrow money. So during war, usually debt is what they use to finance. During civil war, Nigeria borrowed so much money, so also the Biafra government, abi, they borrowed so much money to pursue the war, and that's one of the reasons when after the war there's a lot of debt everywhere. National calamities, for example, if there is flood, what national calamity have we had in Nigeria recently? Even the ones that people are calling disaster, for example, if you go to the southeast, they have erosion problem. It is man-made. We made it ourselves, and we keep. And if you know the amount of money we voted, ecological fund, we voted for these things, and people get this money and still steal it in those states. You can see it's all man-made, abi? Those are the challenges. I think the last time, the only one, even the one that we said that was calamity was last time there was flood when they released the dam. Do you understand? But that also, there was warning. There was a lot of warning by them saying that they're going to release the dam and it's going to cause flooding. But Nigerians, in our usual characteristics, the drains were flooded with pure water and or whatnot. So when the dam came, Ogun State, Oyo State was overrun by flood. So you can see that we are so lucky in Nigeria. If we can get rid of corruption and human beings, we'll be good. We'll be good. So, and also need for long-term economic development. In the next slide, I'm going to explain the difference between development, growth, and all that. But essentially, for development, if we want to develop this economy, sometimes we need to borrow, abi? If we, for example, I gave an example yesterday, Malaysia. Have you guys followed the Malaysia dream story? Have you guys read any book concerning their dream story? That they decided years ago, this is where we're going to be in the next 10 years. And they started spending money on, for example, the people, the students to learn. The people said they gave up on the people above 50. Do you understand? But people below 50 and especially people between 10 and 20 years old, they changed their curriculum, made sure that they changed everything concerning them, even their orientation. They started changing everything, and they knew that in the next 20 years, those people that were 10 to, they will now be in power. Since their orientation has changed, everything will change, and that's what happened to Malaysia. So, and in those kind of things, the long-term plan, that you need to spend money on now to change everything. The same thing if you want to have stability. Sometimes you may need to fund your budget such that you can stabilize. Now, one of the other things that causes deficits, that also causes debt, is inefficiency of public organization. And the last one, which is our major problem in Nigeria, corruption. I mean, if somebody has 9.7 cash somewhere in a house, imagine what that money will have done, and imagine that kind of money replicated across everywhere. You know, that's the issue, corruption, people getting their hands on what they shouldn't have their hands on. Now, yes, sir. Yes, thank you for mentioning them. But I know Ghana is indebted to Nigeria. I know Ghana very well. I know even Liberia is indebted to us. They've not been able to pay us the money we spent during the war. Do you understand? I know Principe and South Thomas are indebted to us. I don't know if they paid back, but the money was huge. Let's define these three things because we're using them, like I said, some of these terms that we're using loosely. What is economic growth? Essentially, growth is an increase in your GDP. It's different from economic development. Development is when that GDP translates to improvement of human welfare. Now, for example, if you're a salary earner, growth is when your salary changes. Abi, your salary, you have grown, Abi, from 100,000 to 200,000, your salary has changed. Now, if that impacts your family, for example, you now change your accommodation from Ajangbadi to Surulere, that is development. Are you getting it? Unfortunately, there can be growth without development. But there cannot be a development without growth. Are you getting it now? So, growth in GDP is key, but most importantly, how it affects the population. When that growth affects positively the welfare of your population and their well-being. For example, when we start having better hospital, and that's what the argument at the time, when we say we are the second biggest, largest economy in Africa, that is a growth model. But development-wise, was there any impact? Still no road, still no water, still no lights. Are we? Now, what is now sustainable development? Sustainable development is deeper. That you have development that is based on your growth, but has no effect. You have not put effect on the future generation. How do we say that? For example, when a state borrows money, it has caused growth, Abi. It may also have caused development, but it's not sustainable because it has left debt for future. Do you understand? So that's why we say, oh, this growth is not sustainable without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Because as it is now, some of our children coming, they can't meet anything. We have spent all the money, even collected loan on them. Let's come to how do we finance debt? How do we finance debt? One is that we can borrow from the other sector of the economy, within the economy, Abi, or like I said, within the same geopolitical location. And that's what is called the internal debt. We can also borrow from other countries abroad, and that's why it's external debt. But the third option, which is not encouraged, but it is possible, is that you can actually print new notes. If you, instead of you borrowing money, just print new notes. Do you understand? But what that costs is that at the end of the day, your notes become useless. I think in Zimbabwe they have 1 trillion naira one note, Abi. I say naira. They have $1 trillion. So these are the ways of financing debt. You can either borrow internally, externally, or print notes. We don't focus on the printing of notes because obviously we don't want you guys to learn the bad one, Abi. So we want to focus on the first two. Now, how do we finance debt internally? Now, we generally finance debt internally by issuing debt certificates, Abi. Government do not come and say, we need to borrow money, citizens should come and bring their money together, Abi. Government usually issues some form of bond. I think that's what I should have used. Some form of bond that it gives to citizens, that citizens will get to pay back, and it serves as debt borrowing. And basically, in federal government, we have two types. Now, internally, government can borrow money either through bonds or through trade debts. For example, if you collect an LPO from government and you go to your bank to finance it, it's a trade debt to government, Abi. It's still a debt. And I know many contractors that have gone out of business because government now will refuse to pay, which is another issue, Abi. But let's look at the ones concerning this. There are three major ones: the treasury bill, the treasury certificate, and the Nigerian development stock. Those are the three major ways federal government borrows money from citizens. Now, the treasury certificate is almost the same thing like the treasury bill, but it's no more in circulation again. What we have majorly in circulation is the treasury bill and development stock. Now, the difference between development stock and treasury is just a time frame. In fact, people say that there's no need for us differentiating them between treasury bills and development stock, because the only thing is that development stock is for 2 to 25 years, while the bill is usually short term. And because usually recently in these days, Nigeria usually issues the FGM bond, which is 2 to 25 years. We rarely issue the one of 90 to 91 days to 364 days anymore. But we do them because it's to serve as short-term loan. Because one of the things the policy Soludo came with that time was that government should not borrow any short-term. Any money we cannot finance from our budget in terms of paying salaries, doing all those short-term things, we should just not go into it, that we should only borrow money for big projects. And that's why we have those three. So why did I also leave it there is that I'm sure in your pack, what you have is these three as in your pack. But we've not had any question on this for a very long time, but there's no harm for you reading it. Yes, sir. There's always a bond every year. Yeah. A question can come. Yeah, thank you for, I think it's even, what I did not think about is what she's saying, because current thing are what I can try to ask. And I'm sure recently if you are into public sector or you are into accounting, and a lot of people have asked questions, people have come to me, and this new bond, should I buy? this thing should I buy? And because it's there's 3 years, there's 7 years, there's like that, and all that. So she has said, and it's true, since God, ICANN is all about what is happening now. It's possible that they've not asked the question in a long time, and it's a matter that is ongoing. They may also now decide to ask it as a question. So please do understand the differences. You don't need to cram it. I think I included a sample of the ones that were issued one time into the zip file, have you? Did I? A sample of how the Treasury, the call for the circular for call for the bond is. I think I'll check it. If I didn't include that, I'll send it to everybody. Now, we can also borrow money externally. Now, borrowing money externally can be in 3 major forms. One form is a country borrowing from another country directly. It's called bilateral loan or bilateral borrowing. That is Nigeria going to US or Nigeria going to China. I mean, you are aware of Nigeria went to China, Abi? Go to China and go to borrow money directly from China. That is bilateral loan between 2 people, Abi? But sometimes you borrow money from a lot of countries together on a particular project. Which project have we borrowed that kind of money from people? That we borrow money from a lot, but essentially if you borrow money from more than one country to fund a particular project or to fund your deficit, it's called multilateral borrowing. Now, other people say that usually, like in Nigeria, as we have borrowed money from China, we've also borrowed money from other countries of the world. That means we have multilaterally borrowed money from everybody. Now, there's also the loan we collect from international organizations like the World Bank, IMF, and International Money Corporation. These are loans that is not country specific, that we go to apply for and we get the loan concerning whatever we are doing. And most of these, the thing I sent to you guys are going to see the money we borrowed from international organizations today, Abi. You guys have not reviewed it. It's not? You should download it now. Okay, for example, Nigeria, the multilateral loan we have is from World Bank, we have African Development Group, IFAD. Then, in fact, yeah, we have the bilateral loan from China, France, Japan, India, Germany. From where? For those are the countries that we borrowed bilaterally from. The money we went to borrow directly from each of those countries. You said it's not opening? No, that is directly between us and one country. That means the money Nigeria borrowed from China, they wrote the figure there, Abi. The one we borrowed from France, that is individually, bilateral. Okay, now, just like we did in classification of public expenditure yesterday, public debt too are classified, and there's been a lot of people trying to use classification of it and all that. So let's look at the popular ones, the popular ways people have classified public debt. When we used to do public sector accounting, this would be a popular question, but in the recent times it will not be popular. But in trying to explain issues concerning public debt, some of these terms and classification will come very handy in explaining it. For example, I don't need to explain what is the difference between internal and external debt anymore, Abi, because we said whatever is within the geographical zone, external outside of that is debt. Now, productive and unproductive debt, I think it's self-explanatory. Essentially, productive loans are the ones that you borrow, essentially let's say, we say productive things. For example, in the country, when you borrow money to build railway, for example, the one we are building now, the China money that we borrowed is to build the light rail, Abi. For example, the one Lagos State borrowed, the one Nigeria to borrow is to build the rails from, for example, Abuja to Kaduna rail. They want to build Lagos Ibadan rail, and probably there will be rail from here to Abuja. It will be nice, Abi. Calabar, yes. They said that one was missing in the budget, Abi. Yes. And we have started it back. Okay, let's go. So, and the productive ones are the one we collect for all this kind of loan, Abi. But the unproductive ones, so to say, that loan that do not yield income. Not that we don't use them to do anything, but they don't yield income for government. For example, if there's a natural calamity or something that will collect loan to, for example, there's an IDP camps, Abi. Like we are now, though they are not natural, they are man-made, Abi. But those ones that we did not plan for, IDP camps that were sustaining, can we tax the people in IDP camps? We can't tax them, Abi. Therefore, whatever loan we collected to build and maintain those IDP camps is kind of generally, we cannot say we can collect money from it. Then, There are redeemable loans and irredeemable loans. I think those ones are done in financial reporting, Abi. What's the difference between redeemable shares and irredeemable shares? The shares that don't look at this one now, your financial reporting class now. Yeah, you have, no, not even, you call it redeemable debenture and irredeemable debenture. What are those things? Not that you can't recover the money. No, until you come, see, the thing about redeemable debenture is that I'm borrowing you money and you're going to pay back in particular time while you're paying the interest. Now, irredeemable is that collect this money and keep paying interest till thy kingdom come. You're not going to redeem it. Do you understand? Sometimes a way of having, it's a strategy of having shares in a business and you don't want to lose, because in case that business is collapsing, you form part of the people that will first get your money before the main shareholders, because you are a debenture holders. But you know that the business is good. Do you understand? You want to be part of it. And sometimes the business owners sometimes also do that so that they don't dilute the shares. Do you understand? They don't dilute the shares. But that's not the case in the government. Now, the government too, in terms of government, we can have redeemable loan, the ones that we will pay back. Irredeemable loans, which is rare, I've never heard of it, that you collect loan and say you are never going to pay back, you just keep paying interest on it. So there's also the one between short-term and long-term loan, just like what you have. I mean, what do we determine term loan in terms of private sector? Any loan that's less than 1 year, I mean, is called what? And above that, excellent. But you know, the government thing is very difficult. Some people have argued that 5 years is short term in government, and anything longer than that is long term. However, IPSAS says let's work with the way private sector works, Abi. Therefore, anything below 1 year is short term, and anything above that is long term. Funded and non-funded debt, just like you have in terms of sinking fund, Abi. Funded debt are debt to borrow, and you are funding to repay. Do you understand? You are putting money aside to repay it, and when it's due, you will just be able to take money from whatever you have. But the unfunded one, usually for less than 1 year, you don't create any separate account to use to pay it. Do you understand? Did I explain that one well? Okay. Then we have things like voluntary and compulsory loan. All these terminologies and this classification are people just coming up with different classifications of what kind of debts should be. The one voluntary is that government goes into it with its voluntary thought or something. Nothing's prompting them to go into the ideology behind this, as if government goes into loan without compulsion. That means you don't need to go into loan. They believe that sometimes, and this is mostly fueled in third world countries, according to the person that authored it, that in third world countries there are some loans that the government should not go into, and government just, because they have the ability to go into those loans, they just decide to go into those loans. And I agree. In the recent time, usually when we used to take this thing, I didn't used to agree with it, but now I have seen state government going to the loan that they don't need. Because to me, some states, the money they borrowed is of no purpose. But they just go ahead and borrow. But compulsory loans are the loans that, based on the issues happening beyond due, for example, there's war, and you go and borrow money, is a compulsory debt. Then there's marketable and non-marketable debt. Marketable debt is the one that you can sell off, Abi, in the market, in a secondary market. Whereas the non-marketable loans are those ones that cannot be sold in foreign exchange. Then we have the gross debt and net debt, Abi, like gross profit and net profit, Abi. What's the difference? One has direct costs and one has less expenses, Abi. What are the effects of loan? What are the effects of loan? Loan, deposit rate force is that is a way that we use to mobilize resources. Because, for example, we borrow money for basis of, for example, if we want to exploit our oil properly, let's assume we decide that we'll stop exporting oil in Nigeria. Do you understand? Do we have refineries? Do we have things to manage it? We don't, Abi. We may borrow money for the purpose of establishing those things and over time pay them, Abi. It's a way of making sure that we bring all the resources together. It also helps us to increase capacity. Imagine one of the things that this government has said is that we need to do infrastructure development, Abi, by having good roads, good rail network, meaning that food can come from Kano straight to Abuja within a day, Abi. Is that right? And meaning that a lot of food that gets spoiled in the north, that there's nobody eating it, can come to the south. A lot of mango, as in heap of mango, and we ask, like if you go to the north, ginger is cheap in the north, Abi. Very cheap, but here they will give you 2 pieces for 50 naira. But in Abuja, if you go to buy ginger, if you give them 100 naira, they will pack the nylon and say, make I give you more. You can, assuming there's a way we can transport overnight here. So if we increase those infrastructure, we can actually increase capacity of the economy. We can also use it to promote investment, because by the time there are infrastructure, one of the reasons why people don't invest in our economy is that there are no infrastructure. There's no light, Abi, for anybody to come and run any manufacturing plant. When I was younger, the entire Abakran was industrial estate. Ilukpeji was industrial estate, Abi. Ojota was industrial estate. When you drive in those days, you see people closing from work. There was a lot of people that are management accountants in all these companies. Where are they now? I think there are only churches there now, Abi. Only churches there now. And also development, you can use to bring development to an environment. For example, look at the way Lekki is a good example, Abi. Government expenditure is what has brought Lekki to where it is today. Ordinary, that Ikoyi Link Road, imagine what it has done to Lekki. Do you understand? It has really blew it up from where it was before. And it's also based, sometimes we use foreign debt to borrow, to use it to finance our foreign exchange that we can use for development purpose. Now, any question at this point? Any question? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue